Hey everybody, so back here in the garage, about ready to get started on the next project. So for today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on these race ramps that I was telling you about before. Like I said, there's some options out there that you can buy that are really nice and fancy. In this case, I bought a 12-foot 2x6 board at a hardware store, had them cut it into sections of 3-foot, 2-foot, and 1-foot sections for a total of 6 pieces. And then a friend of mine came over and cut them at 45 degrees angles just to make it easier for the tire to transition up onto the piece of wood. And then we're going to take it to the next step and just make it a little bit nicer by painting them up, maybe putting some handles on the side. Probably going to have to run to the hardware store. Like I said, one of the hardest parts about some of these projects is taking a break and going and getting the hardware that you need to do what you need to do. A good example of that is yesterday we were working on Black Betty, trying to put the seat in there, doing a bunch of work, and I had to pause to go get some bolts and some of the seat nuts and things like that. And it takes a good hour out of our day just to go over there, find what you need, and come back and get restarted on your project. But that's all part of what we do. But first, I'm going to go ahead and grab Black Betty, back it up in here to the garage because I've got to take that passenger seat back out. I've got to put the seat harnesses in there, the shoulder harnesses, the lap belts, and the submarine belt for the passenger seat. And then we're waiting on parts to come in to finish up the driver's side. It looks like we might go with a slider seat on that side just to make it more convenient for people as they come in to drive to switch seats, seat positions back and forth. So stand by, we're going to go get Black Betty and back it up in the garage, and then we'll get started on this project. Hopefully I have some paint. I'm pretty sure I have some screws, and then we'll start putting all this together and making it look a little bit fancier. And again, you don't have to do any of that. You can keep it just wood colored, very basic, but just kind of makes things go the next step. And again, at the end of this, maybe we're $30, $40 into this compared to some of the options out there, $450 for the really fancy stuff. And a lot of them are out of stock right now. I wasn't able to find the really fancy race ramps, so this is my solution, and it could be for you too. The difference of $400, that could make a huge difference. It could be a track day for you, for instance, as opposed to something that works just fine that is only used for maybe a fraction of a second as you load or unload the car throughout the day. All right, be right back. I'm going to back Black Betty into the garage. Easy for you to say, back Black Betty to the garage. So I'll be right back. So one of my favorite things about doing a project is when you actually have all the supplies that you need to do that project in your own garage or shop, and you don't have to run out and get anything. So I already had some spray paint that's good here for metal, wood, all kinds of things, fiberglass. So in this case, I think this is going to work great for what we're trying to do. So I don't need to go out and buy anything new. And I've got some wood screws that are long enough to go through both layers. So what we're gonna have to do is drill this board into this board and then this board into this board, and that will kind of keep all three of them together. But we'll go through that as we go. So first step here is just gonna paint all these boards and then let them dry. So let's get started with that. So I don't wanna ruin my table here, so I'm gonna go ahead and put down some cardboard that I've got laying around. I always tend to keep extra cardboard for these types of things anyway. And as you can see here, this was previously a lemonade stand that is now gonna be our overspray catch so we don't ruin our table. And again, we're not trying to make any super fancy products that we're gonna sell. So the idea here is just to make it nice and professional, neat looking. And it really doesn't matter. This doesn't make the race car go any faster. It doesn't help your lap times. It just looks better overall. And these simple little things translate into discipline and just show, if you take the time to do this, how detailed oriented you're gonna be on track and how much effort you're gonna take into maybe finding that perfect line or spending the time to adjust your coilover slightly to the perfection that it needs so the car can perform at its best, or the time you might spend looking at a video of your laps or talking to a driver coach. And those small little details, they all add up. And again, maybe you're better than me. Maybe you're the guy that's just on it with everything. And these little things don't matter. I've met plenty of guys in all my racing experience that they don't do any of these things. They barely maintenance their car. They don't do anything. They show up and they're fast. And then I met guys that have to struggle for every inch of progress, and they fight and they fight and they fight to get better over time and continually refine their program so that they can be the absolute best. Now, if you're wondering, by the way, why I didn't paint this entire board, you'd be partially right. On top, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's going to be covered up by another board. But as I just realized, the sides do matter because you can see the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the whole thing. So, and again, you could put all three boards together first with the screws and everything like that, and then paint it. And there's probably an argument to be made that says that that would be a better way of doing it. But as I'm here doing this now, I'm going to stick with it and just give this some coats of paint. And then I'll go back, put them all together, and then maybe have to do some touch-ups when it's all said and done to make it look really good. But there are a lot of ways to do it. Just like within racing, there's a lot of different ways to do certain things. There is pretty much at every track the fastest line. But a lot of times that can also depend on your car, the setup, what kind of driver you are. Do you like to drive a really loose car, a really tight car? There's so many variables to everything. You'll meet a lot of guys who think there's only one way. My way is the best way. And drag racing, I had a lot of crew chiefs that, and towards the end of my racing career for drag racing, that thought, well, you can only make it work with certain equipment and certain setups, and that their way was the only way. And maybe for them it is, but when you're trying to work with teams that maybe don't have the funding or the backing of some of the professional teams do, and you have to make adjustments to work within your program, you have to be a little more creative, and you have to be willing to adapt and come up with a program that fits your budget and your ability to operate within that. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody's very flexible. There's a saying in the Air Force when I was a pilot, the key to war power or air power is flexibility. Not sure I still understand what that means 100%, but we were pretty flexible as a pilot in the military. Nothing ever went as planned necessarily, and you did have to be creative and flexible in your approach sometimes. So for those of you watching, yeah, you're right. What's going to happen when the tire goes up and down this several times? I suppose it could wear it out. It may not look as pretty or nice as it did when it was brand new, but at least it gives it some other color than just being basic wood. It just makes it look a little bit nicer. And it doesn't take that long to do. I don't believe that I wanted to put some handles on the side of these just to help make them look a little bit nicer too. And I'll scavenge around. I felt like I had some stuff around on the shelf somewhere that might be usable, but I'm not sure. So that may require a trip to the local hardware store to grab some. I was kind of thinking along the lines of some pieces of fabric just to drill on the side. That way you can just easily reach down and grab the fabric and move on with your day. So, and then once we get around to it, I'm gonna get back in Black Betty there. I gotta pull the passenger seat back out. It's a little bit farther forward than I would like. Part of the problem, and I'll try to show you later, what we ran into yesterday was I had forgotten when I had done my C5 years ago, and even when I built my spec Corvette, the seat pans are flat, but then where the studs for the seat, for the stock seats are, they're recessed in the pan. So you got the stud sticking up, and then it's in a recess, and then the rest of the seat pan is flat. So the seat brackets I have are perfectly flat, so they don't go down into that recess. So what you need is stud extenders that screw onto the stud and then can receive on top. It's an extra little stud, so that way you can actually mount a flat seat bracket flat. And I didn't have all, I had one set, and I need two, because one for the driver's side, one for the passenger side. I only had the one. But then, like I said, I'm considering using the slider adjustable for the driver's side, just to make it easier when Jaden's driving the car or I'm driving the car, or you as a client come in, you want to drive the car, we can slide the seat forward, find a position that's comfortable for you, instead of having to take the seat out, find a new seat position, move it back and forth. Ultimately, that's going to be better. The downside of that is I don't like the seat slider, just because if in a really severe frontal impact, I suppose the pins could break in the slider and it could go forward. But we do have the harness bar. We do have a 5-point harness. So you're still securely from both sides of the car locked in there. So the seat's not going to go anywhere, nor are you. Now, if that harness bar comes loose, the pins on the bracket, I mean, a lot of things would have to happen for, I mean, it would have to be a very high G frontal impact. And with the driver development car, with Black Betty, we're not going to be running at those kinds of speeds. And we're certainly not going to be pushing it to that limit that we should be hitting anything front impact that hard that would create those kinds of G-forces. So I feel very comfortable with the driver development car, especially having done years of HPDE and time trial in a setup very similar to this in my own car back in 2014 when I won the Corvette Challenge Championship. So I had a very similar same setup. Worked great, never had any issues, but I also didn't crash the car ever. But I think it'll be a great setup, and it's a good solution for getting folks introduced to track events, or if you just, maybe you're coming out of a slower car and you want to try something a little bit quicker, you want to see what the vet's like, you're thinking about buying a vet, or you just want to do an upgrade to what you already have for a track experience, I think that's a great solution for you to get started. And then of course, when you're ready, we'll put you in Brian the car, which is the yellow C5 Corvette, and that is a full-on race car. It has a full cage, and we will have to know your height, and we'll have to set the seat to you. And it also has a 5-point racing harness, but it's fully legal for competition within all sanctioning bodies, safety requirements, and specifications for wheel-to-wheel racing. And if you're showing up to do a race, obviously you got to get through tech. And if you're just showing up to do some track days, or maybe you want to use it to get your racing license, it will be fully legal and track compliant. We'll have no trouble getting through tech. Of course, we're there to support you and all that and get you through the day. If you need to rent it for just upgrading your license, or if you want to do a race, whatever you want to do, we're there for you, and we'll support you 100%. And that car has a little bit more power, and it also has the upgraded cooling fans and other types of equipment that help the endurance and durability, as well as overall track performance. It's on coilovers, and ultimately is a more capable car for track type events. All right, we are quickly running out of room here, hoping that we can make this work without painting the side of our refrigerator here, which is the intent of some of our planning here, but we're running out of paint, so I'm just trying to use up the rest of this paint. I see now that I'm going to get the edge of my table. A lot of this stuff is trial and error. It's just like if you go out to bake some cookies for the first time, and you're following an ingredients that your grandmother passed down to you. You may not get them right the first time. It may take you a couple times before you can figure out all the intricacies of how grandma used to do it. Now, a lot can be said for racing and that experience as well. It's very similar. It looks easy. It's like, oh yeah, you just go out there and go for it. No big deal, right? But it's the same kind of idea. It's seat time, it's the practice, it's repetition, doing the same thing over and over again that gets you comfortable. It's finding that edge and really having a strategy of how you're going to attack it as well. Because you don't go out, once you kind of got in the habit of doing it regularly, you know how to drive the car, you're comfortable in the car, you're comfortable on the track, you know the line. Your goal every time you go out is not to set the fastest lap, unless you're doing the qualifying or something for a race. But your goal, if you're just out there on a practice day, is to pick a couple corners that you struggle at, where you see everybody else is faster than you that's in a similar type of car, and you want to go out and try to tell yourself, all right, I'm just going to pick a couple corners here and try to improve on those corners over time. And that's where some of the data collection things like the Garmin Catalyst that we have here at BMS can help, because it will show you if you're faster or slower. And so you could try a couple different lines, entry exit speeds, braking strategies, trail braking, to see what works for you in the car in that particular corner. And there's a lot to be said for talking to other buddies that are at the track as well, that have driven similar type of cars as yours. That's the fun part of being out at the track, is talking to some of these guys. Hey, how do you do turn 4 or turn 5? What's your entry speed look like? If they know, if they happen to look. Not everybody looks at their speeds. What kind of line do you do? Do you use any outside visual references? Do you line up trees, telephone poles? What strategy do you use to get through the corner? And you'd be surprised. I can't tell you how many times I've had guys tell me, look, man, once I start turning in, once I move that steering wheel, pitch in for the turn on the apex, I'm not even on the brakes. And I'll be like, wow, I've been trail braking for at least 2 seconds into that turn before I'm off the brake 100%. And they'll be like, just try it. Or just, hey, aim your left tire on the inside of the curbing and just float over the top of it. And next thing you know, you've picked up half a second on that lap time just because you tried a strategy that somebody told you to try. Or sometimes it doesn't work out and you find yourself going backwards on the track, in circles, in the dirt, with a lot of dust, and hopefully no trees or walls or tires to hit. But that is the risk of racing, and that is what can happen. So like I was telling you, I just kind of scrounged around the office. I was about ready to leave and go see if I could find any handle type material at a hardware store, and sure enough, I was looking around the garage. I found these straps that will work perfect. So what I'm going to do is just once this is all put together, I'll just drill these in the side, kind of bend them up, make them a little bit smaller so that you can put your hand around there, grab the board, put it back in the trailer somewhere neat and organized. So this is an easy solution. Some stuff I have laying around, it probably came with something else. I threw it in the corner, and here we are, able to reuse it. So this so far has been an overall victory of not having to go to the hardware store for this project, which is always nice. All right, so we're gonna wait for these to dry up a little bit, and then we'll start putting it together. It looks like it's getting pretty close. I did do a second respray over some of them just to give it a little bit better look, but should dry pretty quick, and we'll get started. All right, so here we are. It's all dried up and ready to go. So now we're gonna start putting these boards together like such. Putting some screws in there, drilling it all together, and finishing this project up. So what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to drill some pilot holes, just because I have done this before and it just seems to make it go a little bit easier. I put a lot of screws in here before. I don't think you need that many. I think I'm just going to start with maybe basically 4, and then we'll see how it goes. And if we need to add more later, we can always do that. Kind of already realized I made a little bit of a mistake, because I wanted to keep an edge here, right here, so that you could put a ramp up against it, but then I drilled my holes right where I wanted to do that. So fortunately I did take a look at that before I got too far. Not a big deal, I got a couple holes there. We're just going to add a couple right here, and that's where we'll actually put the screws. I think I ran into this problem before and I already forgot. We'll hide the other ones somewhere in this area. And again, these screws are long enough that they will go, I don't know if you can see there, they will go all the way down into this board about halfway. That's about how we want to make sure, and we want to try to make sure these are flush when they go all the way in. There. One in here. for the third board. So we're going to leave a little bit of an edge there. And we just want to be careful that we don't put the screws somewhere other than where the other screws are, so we're not drilling right on top of them. Just gonna keep an eye on that. Really, I mean, as long as you're watching out where you're putting them, it should be fine. Now, when you're building something and you take it off and then you go to the next step and then you can't find the part that you need, this is one of those situations. I'm looking for the drill bit right now, and you guys probably saw it on the video drop somewhere and roll away. And it's probably the most unlikely spot you could find. So here I am, wandering around the garage looking for the drill bit. So I have to show you guys this. Like I'm talking about, it is so frustrating sometimes when you're working on a project and you've got your tools there, you're all organized, you're doing your best to try to make this project go as smooth and quickly as possible, and you're videoing it so that other people can learn from you and your mistakes. And you take the drill bit out to put the screw bit on there, drilling your boards, and then you can't find it. And admittedly, I had to go back and watch the video to figure out what had possibly happened. And sure enough, I had set it down somewhere on the left side of this board, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it must have fell on the ground, rolled underneath the truck, who knows, right? As I look closer and closer, look where this thing ended up. I mean, come on. I spent a good 5 minutes searching for that thing while I was trying to make this video. And here we are, just like all of you at home, trying to do this project, and it takes more time to do a simple task just because I'm looking for my tools. Alright, now that we have our drill bit back, we're ready to resume the project. I even put on my glasses for this because I couldn't find them. Alright, here we go. So, like I talked about, I want to leave some room here. Want to offset, make sure I'm going to go a little bit more in the middle with this board, just to make sure that we clear those screws that are already there. I'm going to go a little bit deeper with the pilot holes as well. I would like the screws to go in really flush, just so that the tire's not running over them. You get a hot track tire or something like that, and when it's getting on that metal, I don't know, it's not end of the world, but it'd just be nicer if they're really flush. So that's what we're going for here. This time we're going to set this in here. That one we know for sure where it's at. Alright, there you have it. We'll wipe this off. Now we've got one ramp pretty close to going there. And you can make these longer, shorter, whatever you want to do based on the profile of your car. What kind of lift it's got to get. This is kind of a guess here. I think it's probably going to work out okay. I'll probably do a little dab of paint over the top there, just curl the screws up. And then we're going to add a couple little handles on the side here. I think we'll put it on this middle board just to make it a little bit easier to grab onto those and carry them around. So let's try to do that. I think I'm going to do the pilot hole thing again. Usually when you're trying to drill through fabric, when I've done this before, it ends up, even trying to drill just a basic hole in it can be a problem. So we're a little trial and error here as we try to see how this is going to work. I'm just going to, I kind of want to double that up, do something like that. Loop it around just so that it's a little bit nicer. Again, some trial and error here. We're learning together. That probably worked out okay. I'm going to throw a screw in there before I get too far, just to see how that worked out. We might want to do that differently next time, but don't really need this long screw. Let me see if I can find something smaller. Alright, so what I found was I've got 4 screws here. Wanted something a little bit longer. Last thing you want is for that to pull off when you're trying to get it off there. And then I'm going to put a washer on the head side of the screw just to give it a little bit more surface area to hold that down. So that's the idea here. Let's see if we can get that to go through. good. Didn't quite tighten up as much as I would like. I did that pilot hole in there, and I think the screw's a little bit tighter. Now there's nothing wrong. I guess I could use these really long screws, and maybe that's what I'll do. I'll probably take that one out, put one of these in there instead. Just that way it's got more bite. Again, kind of learning here a little bit as we go. Never hurts to step back, try something different, and then we're going to scooch that up a little bit just so that a little bit of room to get your hand in there to grab it. And again, no rhyme or reason why I'm making it on this middle one versus on the end or on this board. That's whatever you want. Trial and error, whatever works for you. What I may find is this may not work at all. I may want to completely redesign it or do something different. Again, we're kind of just figuring things out here. So. This time we're going to go with this screw. I'm still going to use the washer in it though. I kind of like that idea. Again, just gives it a little bit more bite. Push that through there. And I suspect that over time, this fabric's going to kind of tear. You may have to end up redoing it, but I don't know. It might last longer than we think. So I'll make sure it's nice and straight, so that way it doesn't split the board as it goes all the way through. So that one is a lot better. So we're going to replace this one. It's quite a bit more substantial. Makes for a nice little carrying handle, nice and sturdy. Set the board down and be able to pick it up. And then we'll just throw a little dab of paint on the top of that. And like I was saying, 20 bucks really. I had most of the stuff in my garage to be able to do, laying around from scrap, other projects, whatever. So 20 bucks, maybe an hour's worth of time to put this together, mostly because I lost a drill bit. And there you've saved quite a bit of money over buying $450 race ramps. And you spent some quality time in the garage figuring some stuff out, refining your skills, finding what works, what doesn't work. And that will translate into other areas of what you do with your race car, with your track experience, with anything you might do. And so that's just part of the process here. A lot of the guys, I'm a fourth generation racer. My son's a fourth generation, I'm a third generation racer. The ingenuity of my grandfather with racing cars was amazing. He would just figure it out. They would build their own stuff. A lot of these days we go on Amazon or wherever and we buy the thing that we need. And we spend a lot of money to do that. I think bringing back to our generation, our kids' generation, the idea of let's build it instead of buy it and figure it out and do some things on our own, I think there's some value in that ultimately, and we need to bring that back to our generation. But that's just my opinion, and a lot of guys do things a lot of different ways. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong way. It's the way that works best for you and what you're doing. But again, here at BMS, obviously we want to look professional in what we do. We spend a little bit extra time doing paint. Yeah, I could buy the $450 race ramps. I probably would have if they would have been available. In this case, they weren't. And it's a good opportunity to kind of show you what we do here. If we can't buy it, we'll figure out another solution for now. But will we eventually end up with race ramps? Most likely, yes. And we always look on the used market for things too and good opportunities. There's always guys selling stuff. So if you're in your area, there's a set for sale that you can pick up for cheap. They definitely look really nice and they work really well. But here's a great solution for you as well. So hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. I'm going to get to work on putting the second set together to match the first set. And we'll show you as we go to unload the Brian the car, the trailer, when we do the unboxing for that. We'll use these. Hopefully this edge here will work well for the ramp. I can't remember the design on that trailer 100%. I know like with U-Haul ramps and stuff, it'd be great. But again, we may have to rethink things as we go over there and work with that trailer. Maybe we go, oh, wow, that doesn't work as well as we thought it might. So that's just part of developing and pivoting as we need to adjust our program to work best for us. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check back again as we go on to the next project. I'm probably going to start working on the harnesses for the Corvette for Black Betty here in a second, getting those all set up so that the passenger can be all bolted in the car and the seat position is comfortable for whoever might sit in it. So, all right, talk to you later.